Many people talk about spirituality while escaping their own pain. They transform imagination into an escape, light into denial, consciousness into illusion. But true spirituality doesn't numb you. It embodies. And that hurts. Often, without realizing it, we use spirituality as an escape. We create castles of light, so we don't have to touch the real pain pulsing in our bones. In this video, we're going to dive into a deep truth. When spiritual imagination disconnects from embodied presence, it stops healing and starts to lull us to sleep. In the journey of self-knowledge and spiritual awakening, there are moments when the invisible enchants us more than the tangible. It's as if we're drawn to subtle worlds, promises of peace, elevation, and transcendence, and without realizing it, we distance ourselves from the only real bridge we have to the sacred: our body, our pain, our concrete presence. But what if the soul only blossoms when rooted in matter? And what if true spiritual awakening wasn't an escape from reality, but a silent and sacred return to the now? The spirituality that truly transforms doesn't take us away from life. It brings us back to it. It reconciles us with imperfection, with the weight of the body, with the rawness of the human experience. Not as a punishment to be overcome, but as fertile ground where consciousness can sprout with deep roots. It's no longer about going up. It's about going down, descending to one's own truth, to the silence that hurts, to the part of the soul that wants to inhabit, not escape. This video is an invitation to spiritual clarity, to recognize where our faith has become an escape, where our search has become a distraction, where our light has become denial. Because only when we return to the body can the soul finally stay. But there's something that almost always stops us from returning: the illusion that fleeing is safer than feeling. And that's where the most subtle deception of the spiritual journey begins. Not every spiritual search is truly an awakening. Often, what we call the spiritual path is just a well-disguised detour, an escape route from the pain we don't want to touch. Spiritual fantasy is born subtly. It presents itself as elevation, as refinement of consciousness, but it hides a deep mechanism of emotional dissociation. It's when we use spirituality as anesthesia, not as presence. Phrases like "everything happens for a reason" or "pain is just an illusion" may sound profound, but they often function as shields against real suffering. Shields against grief, against loneliness, against the matter of the now. This spirituality disconnected from the body, which lives only in the mental or astral, distances us from the authentic experience of being alive. It separates us from the soul, because the soul doesn't float. It embodies. It needs the flesh, the tears, the doubt, the fertile silence of presence to flourish. And there is no true spiritual awakening that ignores the ground of life. This type of performative spirituality creates the illusion of evolution, but in reality, it prevents deep inner transformation. It's like painting the ceiling of a temple whose foundations are cracked. The image is beautiful, but everything is about to collapse. And the most dangerous thing: the more we believe in this fantasy, the more we resist vulnerability. And vulnerability is the cradle of healing. Real spirituality doesn't push away pain. It embraces pain with dignity. It doesn't invite us to deny suffering, but to go through it with awareness, with a living soul, with presence. Therefore, we need to recognize, not every spiritual enchantment is elevation. Sometimes it's escape. Sometimes it's fear disguised as light. And this recognition is the first step towards an honest, whole, and embodied awakening of consciousness. But how do we know if, even without realizing it, we are trapped in this escape disguised as light? There are signs. Silent, but revealing. One of the biggest challenges on the path of self-knowledge is distinguishing between real spirituality and mentalized spirituality. The difference is not always visible to the eyes, but it is felt by the body, and by the emptiness that remains even after many readings, courses, and practices. There are silent signs that indicate something has disconnected. One of them is the feeling of disconnected lightness, a constant state of being high, of living in the clouds, which seems elevated but hides an escape from the now. You even talk about soul, energy, consciousness. But you avoid feeling the anger you repress, the sadness you hide, the body you judge as heavy or imperfect. Another sign is the intellectualization of pain. It's when you understand the wound, but you don't go through it. You analyze, study, talk beautifully about what you feel, but you don't surrender to the real vulnerability of what you're experiencing. It's like putting a spiritual varnish over an open wound. It seems controlled, but it keeps bleeding inside. It's also common to have an insatiable search for techniques, rituals, and content, what some call spiritual consumerism. It's a constant movement of seeking answers outside, without pausing to listen to the body, the inner silence, the still unhealed pain. You feel like you're always almost there, but never fully within yourself. And, perhaps the deepest of the signs, you feel a tiredness that doesn't come from the world, but from disconnection with yourself. A spiritual tiredness. As if, deep down, you know you are fleeing from the most sacred part of the journey, the one that hurts but heals. Krishnamurti reminded us, the mind that runs from pain is the same mind that perpetuates suffering. The body holds the key to transformation, but it only opens when we stop avoiding it. Spirituality that ignores the body is not light, it is dissociation. Self-knowledge that rejects feeling is not awakening, it is distraction. Therefore, silence the mind. Return to the body. It is not the problem. It is the altar. That's why true spirituality doesn't float. It touches the ground. It leads us back to concrete reality, not as punishment, but as the sacred field where everything flourishes. There is a moment in the spiritual journey where the seeker finds themselves facing a paradox. The more they try to elevate themselves, the more distant they feel from themselves. That's when we realize that the spirituality we idealized, full of light, peace, ascension, and transcendence, has often pushed us away from the only thing that could truly heal us, the real. True spirituality doesn't invite us to escape the world. It returns us to the world with new eyes. It's not a place we go to. It's how we come back. Come back to the body. Come back to the pain. Come back to the simplicity of now, without adornments, without theories, without performance. Eckhart Tolle teaches that presence is the key to liberation. But presence isn't thinking about the now. It's inhabiting the now, even when it hurts, even when it's imperfect. Many confuse spiritual awakening with rising above life. But awakening, in fact, is deepening into life to the point where it reveals itself as sacred. Therefore, spirituality that doesn't touch concrete reality, that doesn't manifest in daily life, that doesn't embrace human emotions, becomes a subtle theater, a soulless stage. The soul doesn't want to be saved. It wants to be felt. It reveals itself in hunger, in tiredness, in suppressed tears, in the silence of the morning, in the body that breathes with difficulty. That's where the soul touches matter, and matter becomes sacred. Contacting the Real is courageous, because the Real is not shaped by our expectations. It is raw, imperfect, impermanent. But it is there that true inner transformation happens. Spirituality isn't just in altars, candles, or elevated phrases. It's in washing dishes with presence, in accepting grief without answers, in embracing one's own anger with tenderness. You don't awaken when you flee from the real. You awaken when you accept to be whole where you are, and only then does the sacred reveal itself, not as a distant light, but as the simple spiritual truth of being here, now. In that silent moment of presence, something awakens, the soul's desire to return to the body, to inhabit what it once rejected, to make peace with matter. There is a moment when the soul, tired of seeking the heights, decides to return, not out of failure, but out of wisdom. It realizes that the light it was looking for wasn't beyond the clouds, but on the ground beneath its feet, on the skin, in the blood, in the silence between one thought and another. It is at that instant that something changes. Spirituality, once abstract and floating, begins to gain density, not as weight, but as presence. This is the reconciliation with matter. It's when we stop seeing the body as an obstacle to be overcome, and begin to perceive it as a sacred temple where consciousness can flourish. It's when we stop rejecting pain as a mistake, and embrace it as the language of the soul. The return to the body is not a regression. It is the portal of inner transformation, because it is in the body that we feel, cry, heal. It is in the body that the soul pulsates and reveals itself. Rumi said, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop, and that drop lives in the body." Everything sacred begins by incarnating. This return doesn't happen with fanfare. It happens in silence. In the moment you take a deep breath, feel your feet on the ground, feel your heart beat, and, for the first time in a long time, you don't wish to be anywhere else. It is the instant when the now stops being an inconvenience and becomes a dwelling. It is the instant when you stop trying to vibrate higher and learn to vibrate more wholly. Because true spirituality is not the absence of pain, it is real presence within it. And the body is not a prison, it is a bridge between the invisible and the visible, between the soul and life. This return to the body is the beginning of the true awakening of consciousness, no longer idealized, but lived. And there's an image that precisely translates this journey from fragmentation to wholeness: the broken mirror, a living metaphor about seeing yourself completely, even with cracks. Imagine an old mirror, a mirror that has reflected many of your faces, the joyful, the fragile, the wise, the ones you tried to hide. Over time, this mirror broke. It didn't shatter all at once. It silently fragmented, each crack appearing when you denied a pain, fled from a feeling, rejected a part of yourself. The spirituality you embraced may have offered light, but it may also have taught you to hide the shadows, to ignore the body, to silence anger, to mask fear. And so, piece by piece, you stopped seeing yourself whole. The broken mirror represents this state: soul disconnected from body, mind separated from emotion, presence distant from real life. But there is a moment, sometimes subtle, sometimes brutal, when something within us yearns for wholeness. A silent call to stop running and, for the first time, look at yourself with courage. Not to fix, but to embrace. Each fragment of the mirror holds a part of your story. The pain you lived, the truth you silenced, the soul you left waiting. The act of healing begins when, instead of forcing the pieces together, you learn to see yourself anyway, incomplete, imperfect, but present. It's when you realize that the most sacred reflection is not that of perfection, but of honesty. It's not the smooth and luminous image. It's the real portrait of the soul that bleeds, breathes, and loves, even broken. Seeing yourself whole is a radical act of self-knowledge, and also of spiritual reconnection, because it is by embracing all parts that you remember, you were never just light. You are the whole mirror, with cracks, with shadow, with a living soul. And only when you see yourself like this does true healing begin, because seeing yourself whole, even in fragments, is remembering that you were always here. You had just forgotten. True spirituality doesn't elevate us away from life. It invites us to inhabit it with more soul. It's not about escaping pain, nor denying the shadow, but about learning to listen to them, as if they were forgotten parts of a song that can only be whole when all notes are accepted. Flight seems light, but it exhausts. Presence, at first, feels heavy, but it heals. You are not broken. You are coming back to the body, coming back to the truth, coming back to the whole mirror of your soul. Perhaps the deepest spirituality is the one that doesn't promise quick relief, but offers silence. And in that silence, you find yourself. What if the pain you've been avoiding is, in fact, the only part of you that still remembers the way home? If something within you calmed or awakened upon hearing these words, allow yourself to continue. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to walk with us on this road of fertile silence, discoveries, and reconnection. Leave your experience in the comments. Your sharing is also a seed of healing for other hearts. And, to continue expanding this field of presence, we suggest the video in the card. May it be a gentle breath on your journey. Peace and light.